Investors and strategic thinkers, listen carefully because what I am about to say is not speculation. It is a controlled leak hiding in plain sight, and if you blink, you will miss it because right now XRP is suddenly in the spotlight, and the reason will leave you asking WTF just happened to the market you thought you understood. For weeks, the mainstream crypto media has been screaming about memes, ETFs, and distractions, while something far more serious has been quietly repositioning itself behind the scenes. And that something is Ripple and XRP, a digital asset the SEC tried to bury, the banks tried to downplay, and the public was trained to ignore. Yet suddenly, BlackRock is talking tokenization. The IMF is openly discussing cross-border settlement inefficiencies. The BIS is publishing papers that mirror Ripple's exact architecture, and central banks are moving faster than retail can even comprehend. Ask yourself this extreme question: why now? Why XRP? And why are the loudest critics suddenly silent? This changes everything because when assets move from ignored to spotlighted without warning, it is never accidental. It is coordinated, and you are watching the early phase of narrative reversal in real time. Behind closed doors, liquidity is being discussed, not hype, not memes, but plumbing, rails, settlement layers, and this is where XRP lives. And if you think that is a coincidence, you are already 10 steps behind institutions who plan years ahead, while retail reacts seconds too late. The same SEC that dragged Ripple through court has now opened the door to regulatory clarity by force. The same regulators who said crypto was a toy are now racing to define it before someone else controls it. And the same banks that mocked XRP are quietly testing systems that look suspiciously familiar to RippleNet and on-demand liquidity. So ask yourself, are they lying now, or were they lying before? Prepare for shock because when narratives flip, price follows violently, and the spotlight you are seeing is not for entertainment, it is for positioning. If you value real alpha and you want to stay ahead of the crowd that will inevitably show up late and confused, make sure you lock in right now by subscribing, liking, and staying with this channel because what I am about to break down next is not surface-level chatter, it is the connective tissue between power, money, and control that most people will never see explained clearly. XRP is not trending because of luck. It is being allowed back into the conversation. And permission in this market is everything. Who understand that data is power? Let us now strip away the noise and move straight into the authority layer because this is where XRP's spotlight stops looking accidental and starts looking engineered. Look at the timing, not the headlines. Timing never lies. The IMF has publicly stated that cross-border payments remain inefficient, opaque, and expensive. And in the same breath, global institutions are accelerating tokenization frameworks, while BlackRock openly tells the world that the future of finance will be tokenized assets moving on blockchain rails. And suddenly, Ripple is back in closed-door conversations with central banks and payment providers. Ask yourself this brutal question. If XRP was truly dead, why does its use case line up perfectly with every problem these institutions are now urgently trying to solve? The BIS has published documents about unified ledgers, interoperability, and instant settlement. And anyone who has studied Ripple's architecture for more than 5 minutes knows this is not theoretical alignment. This is blueprint-level overlap. Meanwhile, Ripple executives are not panicking, they are calm, composed, and strategically placed at global policy events, Davos-style meetings, and fintech summits, the exact rooms where future infrastructure decisions are quietly made while retail argues on Twitter. This is not hype, this is institutional body language, and body language is louder than press releases. The SEC lawsuit, which was supposed to kill XRP, did the opposite by forcing clarity, forcing definitions, and exposing regulatory overreach. And now that clarity is being used as a weapon by institutions who want compliant liquidity tools, not experimental toys. Notice how XRP liquidity corridors continue expanding outside the United States while America argues with itself, because globally the conversation has already moved on. Banks in Asia, the Middle East, and Latin America are not asking if blockchain will be used. They are asking which one scales, which one settles instantly, and which one doesn't break regulators' hearts. Extreme question time. Why would banks choose a slow, expensive system when a battle-tested one already exists, unless they were waiting for legal smoke to clear so they could move without headlines? This is why XRP is suddenly in the spotlight, not because of retail excitement, but because the people who move trillions have started acknowledging reality out loud, and when authority figures speak, markets eventually listen, even if they pretend not to at first. Respected insiders, because at this point that is exactly what you are becoming. We now enter the most uncomfortable section for critics, the catalyst phase, where narratives collapse and FUD is exposed as intentional misdirection rather than ignorance. The catalyst is not a single announcement, it never is. It is convergence, regulatory clarity tightening, liquidity fragmentation reaching breaking point, and institutions realizing that waiting is now riskier than acting. While the public argues about price suppression and conspiracies, the real trigger is structural stress in the global payment system, where legacy rails cannot keep up with 24/7 markets, instant settlement demands, and tokenized assets that refuse to wait 3 days to clear. This is why every time XRP moves, social media explodes with recycled FUD, because fear must be deployed before comprehension spreads. You have heard it all. Ripple will dump on retail, banks will never use a public token, XRP is centralized, the founders control everything. And yet, despite all of that noise, Ripple continues signing partnerships, expanding corridors, and showing transaction volume that critics conveniently ignore. Ask yourself this extreme question. If XRP was useless, why does it need constant coordinated attacks to keep people away from it? Real scams fade quietly, real threats are attacked loudly. The idea that banks will not use a neutral bridge asset collapses the moment you understand that no bank wants to hold another bank's currency, and this is where XRP's design becomes unavoidable rather than optional. Meanwhile, tokenization is accelerating faster than settlement infrastructure can handle, creating a bottleneck that will force a solution, not a preference. And when that moment hits, assets that already function at scale do not need to ask for permission. They are simply turned on. The FUD about price suppression ignores the reality that liquidity must be built quietly, because violent volatility is the enemy of institutional adoption. So, suppression is not proof of failure, it is proof of preparation. Prepare for shock, because the moment utility overtakes speculation, the market reprices brutally and without warning, leaving latecomers asking how it happened so fast. Now that we have peeled back the layers of narrative, authority, and catalysts, it's time to confront the final, unavoidable truth, the price justification and the warning that nobody else will tell you. XRP is not trading where it should be because markets lag behind reality, and when reality and price finally converge, the repricing will be violent, inevitable, and unforgiving to anyone on the sidelines. Extreme question. If RippleNet and on-demand liquidity are already functioning across multiple corridors, facilitating billions in transactions while banks quietly test, trial, and integrate, why is XRP still undervalued? The answer is manipulation, misinformation, and lagging awareness, all temporary factors that vanish once institutional flows hit open markets. Every major financial institution now has a vested interest in seeing compliant, scalable bridge assets thrive. BlackRock, JP Morgan, Citi, IMF, and even the Bank of England are all invested in the concept, whether publicly acknowledged or quietly strategizing. This is why XRP's spotlight is not fleeting. It is inevitable. Prepare for shock, because when liquidity is finally unleashed, the moves will make what retail calls rallies look like warm-ups, and if you are not positioned, you will be watching from the cheap seats. The final warning is simple. Do not wait for confirmation from media, Twitter influencers, or casual analysts. By the time they notice, the narrative, the catalyst, and the price reality will have already passed, leaving the unprepared scrambling. Institutional alignment, regulatory clarity, technical readiness, and market inefficiency are combining into a perfect storm, and XRP is standing right in the eye. Question everything you thought you knew, trust what you can verify, and position accordingly, because history is written by those who see the signals first, and this is one of those moments where early comprehension equals exponential advantage. The time to act is now. not tomorrow, because XRP's quiet rise from ignored asset to strategic spotlight is not hype. It is structural inevitability, and those who treat it lightly will only realize too late that the story was never about price. It was always about power. As we bring this full picture into focus, here is the conclusion that the mainstream will never tell you. XRP is no longer a speculative gamble. It is a systemic player quietly acknowledged by the most powerful institutions on Earth. Every factor we've dissected, the regulatory clarity, the institutional alignment, the liquidity corridors, and the inevitability of adoption, is converging into a moment where price is simply a reflection of utility finally recognized, not rumor or hype. Ask yourself, when BlackRock, the IMF, BIS, and leading banks are all acting in parallel, can retail panic or indecision actually matter? The answer is no, because the infrastructure, the narrative, and the market forces are already in motion, and the only thing left is timing. The privilege you now hold is comprehension. You have seen the signals, understood the authority behind them, and recognized the catalysts before they explode into mainstream headlines. Ignore this insight at your own peril, because those who wait for confirmation will only watch opportunity vanish while the prepared capitalize. The market is no longer about luck. It is about positioning, foresight, and boldness. And XRP is positioned to rewrite the rules of global settlement, liquidity, and cross-border efficiency in ways that will shock even seasoned traders. Remember this moment, because this is the point where awareness meets inevitability, and acting decisively is the difference between regret and unprecedented advantage. The spotlight is on XRP, the institutions are ready, the rails are in place, and the market is about to catch up. Don't be left on the sidelines.